This market is absolutely madness. It really is. I did what I had to do this morning, switched on my computer. Nasdaq was playing around. I was like, okay, let's just wait for a bit. Then out of nowhere, Trump says that China has violated its agreement on the tariffs. Well, you know, I'm going to try and create an indicator. We're going to call it the Trump indicator. All right. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the uncertainty of these markets is absolutely wild. What does it mean now? Well, put it like this. Safe haven assets have effectively started to make a move to the upside. The yen is gaining. The euro's gaining. Gold is making a little bit of a move. However, is the market just going to be satisfied with the information that it's got about Trump and the China story? What does it actually mean? What more can Trump do with regards to these tariffs? Could he go to sanctions? Who knows? But in good news, the PCE data came in line with expectations, and investors are betting for the idea that the Fed is going to cut in September. Realistically, I don't even think that the market cares about rate cuts, ladies and gentlemen. You're getting wonderful yields on the euro and, of course, the yen. You're pretty much doing all right if you're planting yourself in gold to hedge yourself against inflation. What's Bitcoin saying? Well, Bitcoin has been up and down. And I will say this to you guys. Trump today is having a meeting with Musk. After that, he's going to be talking about US trade deals. So you can appreciate that today is going to be a very interesting day. But Trump will be traveling today. So during that window, you're probably going to see the markets trade a bit sideways and hear what Trump has to say about this story with China. Ah, man, he's got these markets by the... Anyways, let's just break it all down, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to try and keep this live short and sweet for you, give you everything you need to know, and let you go about your day. All right? Let's get with the program, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, my days. NASDAQ. Unbelievable. I'm watching it, and it's just... This is the announcement with regards to China, makes the sweep to the downside, completely wipes the Asian session range, makes a nice little reversal from it. Right now, it's holding out in this range right here. Going over to Bitcoin, you can see Bitcoin has been behaving a little bit sporadically. It's been, hasn't swept the Asian session range just yet. It's come back into the vector candle recovery region. It's doing okay in the sense of price action. It's still at 105,000. Oops, not that one. Here we go. Yeah, still at 105,832. Looking at where the bids and the offers are, we did see some activity in Bitcoin last night in the sense where we saw a big bid coming in at around 28 million right there. But it's one of those ones where it's like, is that enough? Now, the offers are looking like they're getting kind of stacked close to the top side of the range at around 106. But just going over into it all, having a look at where we are in terms of other assets. So we've got the euro pulling back after a nice little move up earlier on. It's holding the Asian session range. With that being said, dollar yen is pulling back a little bit. Gold is trying to hold out. And we just go over to NVIDIA in the out of hours markets because that's really going to be leading the markets, in my opinion. NVIDIA's gap down ever so slightly, which is not really too much of a big gap down. It's closing effectively the little gap that it's got right here. Could see some more negative price action on NVIDIA. We've got the actual order flow right here for NVIDIA, and I've got 30K down below on the bid side. Nothing too fancy, but in the offer side, there seems to be quite a bit of interest coming into play towards 144.99. Yesterday, there was around an order for 2 million shares to be transacted at 144.99. So realistically, we're going to want to see if the market is going to react to this story with the tariffs, or in other words, react to the data that's come out. So going into it, we've got, of course, the revised consumer sentiment coming out, and the core PCE came in at 0.1% in line with expectations. So nothing to be too concerned about. But the Federal Reserve is expected to cut the rates in September, and that's what investors are positioning themselves towards. Now, going into it all, it says here, futures drop as tariffs concerns sap confidence, and that's the problem. So whenever you see titles like this, you got to say to yourself, all right, where's the money going? So we look at euro. Euro seems to be trading upwards. We go over to the dollar dominance, or sorry, go to gold. See gold moving upwards. Go to dollar dominance itself and have a look over that over there. Try to make a little bit of a move. It's doing very well to hold out in this range, but I'd be expecting dollar to try and come back up into this vector candle region right here. Going over to the NASDAQ, it is down 0.4% for the day. It's got this big wick right here, and it's swept the liquidity. And if they can sustain this area, then happy days. We'd like to see the NASDAQ try and come up. But if the tariff story is really a concern for investors, then they're not going to be committing liquidity. They won't. They're going to be going elsewhere. With that being said, the bonds market is trailing upwards and the yields are trading positive. The 5-year and the 10-year are flat in principle, but the 30-year is up 0.1% for the day. So it's one of those mixed days, and it looks like the market is going to be waiting to see what Trump has to say with regards to it. Now, speaking about it, says here, Trump says China totally violated the trade agreement with the US. Goes on to say that it's violating an agreement with the US to ease tariffs. He says, China, perhaps not surprisingly to some, has totally violated its agreement with the US. So much for being Mr. Nice Guy. So what does that mean? What are you going to do? Like, what else can Trump do? Going into the article, it's not really dived into it, but it's, I mean, all you can do, ladies and gentlemen, is just keep an eye out on your risk. That's all I can say to you. Now, let's just quickly go and review Bitcoin on the higher time frame for the spot holders to understand where we are. It's broken the 5 and 13 EMA. It's now trading below the 5 and 13 EMA for the first time in a long time, or actually since April. So what does it mean? Well, when we look at it all, ladies and gentlemen, we've got an imbalance all the way down here. And if the narrative does suggest that investors are going to be concerned about these tariffs, what you've got to understand is this. Don't make the mistake of thinking that when the ETF balance stays at these high levels, because right now you can see it's currently at 664,000. It's going up. So it doesn't matter if Bitcoin's price drops. It doesn't, because they use that as an opportunity to load up on the ETF, which only tells me that they're shorting Bitcoin and using the ETF just to accumulate. It's like there's been a reverse, okay? Investors are looking like, I'll go and accumulate the ETF because the ETF itself is very cheap. Look at it. It's currently at $59.99. It's so cheap. I can get exposure in Bitcoin by just picking up the ETF, which is infinitesimal. It's so small in terms of value, okay? It costs me nothing to buy that, but it will cost me quite a bit to go and buy Bitcoin. So relative to what you can spend more money on, you can hold a much bigger position in the ETF than you do in Bitcoin. Because fundamentally, if you're not buying, if you don't have, in my opinion, you're not picking up anything between 100 or 200 Bitcoin, it's not going to be worth your time. Whereas if you can pick up at least 2,000-3,000 of the ETF, any changes in Bitcoin's price, you're going to see a return from it, you know? So with that being said, you got to understand that when you see guys loading up on the ETF balance, like not the ETF, but when you see Bitcoin purchases like this, 28 million right there, tells you that at some point, this person's going to want to offload on that later on if we do end up seeing the volatility to the upside with Bitcoin, okay? Quickly going over into other assets, Ethereum. You can see Ethereum is still holding within the 5 and 13 EMA. It looks like that Ethereum is effectively outperforming Bitcoin in terms of strength because it is not trading below the 5 and 13 EMA on the daily time frame. It's above its moving averages, whereas Bitcoin, it's not there. If you look at it, Bitcoin's below the 5 and 13 EMA, still above the 50. But when you look at it, you can see Ethereum has managed to cross over in terms of price above the 800 EMA and the 200 EMA, and that's a good sign. So the idea could be that there could be some underlying strength in Ethereum. Bitcoin dominance coming into play, and that's going up to 64 right now, up 0.55%. Still expect dominance to come up towards 65 and beyond. XRP, Solana, it's coming down. I think Solana's, we're going to get that transition where we're going to get the idea of Bitcoin up, Ethereum up, Solana down. And that's something that we've been seeing quite a bit, not recently, but as of late, when we're looking at the way cryptocurrency has been behaving, sometimes you see Bitcoin up, Ethereum up, Solana flat or down. And then one instance, you'll get Solana doing really well, Ethereum okay, Bitcoin pretty flat. So it's like people are maneuvering their liquidity. And I think that this Solana is probably going to be primed to come down a little bit more, where they're going to really grab interest inside of these ranges right here around the 149. But that's going to take a little while, not so much a little while, but it all depends on how the day is going to unfold. Okay. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen, whilst we're at it? Soul is trash. Yeah, it's probably. Doesn't matter if it's overbought. It's been that way for more than a year. It's a safe haven for big investors for 100 years plus. Are we talking about gold here? If Trump drops crypto in the stock market in the incoming months, count it as a blessing to buy cheap assets. Well, Nick, not according to the guys in crypto. According to people in cryptocurrency, price needs to be rising for you to buy it. That makes sense. Tino, stop selling. Ugh. Tino, what's the difference between NQ Cash and NQs? I see NQ Cash have completely different moves. Thank you. Yeah, it all depends on the contract. So you've got NASDAQ itself. So this is the micros futures contract, and then you've got the cash market. You've got the NASDAQ composite, okay, which is all of the tech stocks, and then you've got the top 100 stocks in the NASDAQ, which we would understand as the Tech 100 or the NAS 100. So they have different prices, and the futures markets, in my opinion, you want to focus on the futures markets because that's when you can tally volume. Spot markets or CFD markets don't really have that, okay? It's just subject to anyone's game. You know, CFDs it's a very, very tricky game because you can't quantify the volume and know that it's correct. Whereas with the CME, all of the transactions go through the CME market, and it's how can I put it to you? It's itemized. So we know who's buying, we know who's selling. Even though they do it at speeds of light, we can quantify that. Yes, there's been 3,000 contracts. Like if I just show you, for example, I haven't got it up, but okay, here's an example over here. Okay, just to put it into perspective. In front of you, you've got the NASDAQ on the depth of market. Okay, so you can see 40 contracts, 20. Here we go. We've got some contracts coming into play. Okay, and you can see 9,000, 7,000, 8,000. So these are all contracts that have been transacted on the NASDAQ. Those are the volumes that you can quantify and say, yes, I understand. I've got interest at 10,596. In the CFD market, you will never know. Okay, that's why Forex doesn't necessarily have any volume. But if you trade Forex, you're better off going to trade the futures markets in Forex. And then if you do have to use the futures data in Forex to go and trade Forex in the CFD markets, because you can then quantify the idea of data. You can then say, yeah, look, Euros just had a big amount of liquidity coming in. I can see a sell order at the top side for 300 contracts, but you're not going to know that in the CFD market, okay? Because it's over the counter, quite frankly. Not the CFD, but it's the OTC market, spot. So we just don't know who's playing, okay? You make the assumption that the futures market is being played by much bigger players. We know that. However, you're never going to be able to quantify unless you look at the euro, unless you look at the futures. So, for example, look at the way the euro futures are behaving. Okay, so if I just go over here, put onto the 1 hour time frame, futures markets in the euro, they're very, very slow, but they still move. But then when you correlate the idea of the actual Forex market itself, you do see some similarities in the sense where sometimes you'll see the futures market have a big order come in. The spot market might be a bit delayed with it, but it will be happening so quickly. So you'd have to be watching it. And when I'm trading the euro on the futures markets, I'm monitoring the futures data, not the spot data. Okay. I use the spot data just to say, yeah, okay, it's a nice little pattern and what have you. But primarily I'm focused on the futures market. So try that. Tino, if a vector appears, is it on all exchanges or just some? I mean, volume isn't equal everywhere. That's correct. You'll never get the same vector on every time frame, which is why you need to, for cryptocurrency. For example, look, this one right here is Bitstamp, okay? Do you have the same vectors on Bitstamp as you would with Binance? Well, if we look at this right here, you can see that you've got vectors on Bitstamp, right? But then when we go to Binance, you don't see them, which means that the vector candle itself, when it's created, it's based on the premise of ticks or how fast price moves, okay? So on Bitstamp, it looks like the imbalance is present there. Whereas on Binance, you're not seeing the imbalance there. So you wouldn't then make the assumption that price could go back into that, okay? So ideally, what you want to do is you want to focus on exchanges like Binance because they're heavy volume, okay? Which could tell you that on Bitstamp, yeah, there was an imbalance over there, which could mean that price could end up going back to that and fall through, okay? Whereas if you had it on Binance, you could then say, okay, if there's a vector candle there, then if price does go back to that point, there's a good chance that price is either going to continue to drop or it's going to start rolling higher because that's where the guys were buying before. So let's just, yeah, we've got movement, ladies and gentlemen. Hold on, the NASDAQ. What time is it? It's now 20 past. The market's not even open yet. So here we go. NASDAQ's doing relatively well right now in these ranges. Tino, what do you see in the future? Man, you know what? I don't even care about the future, ladies and gentlemen. It's absolutely so difficult to navigate what could be happening next, which is where I'll give you this tip. Okay. I'll help you out on this story. There's a couple of things that happen in the market that you can guarantee that they will always respect. Okay. And that is the bid and offer flow. What do I mean by that? In other words, if there is an aggressive amount of bids being taken, equally, there's going to be an aggressive amount of offers transacting at the same time. This is what you define as the V-shaped reversal, okay? Now, when it comes to the V-shaped reversal itself, go to the smaller time frames, you can see that you've got a V-shape there. And the irony of it all is this. Any of the patterns that I talk about, any of the structures that I mentioned, V-shapes, Ws, Ms, you name it, look at that, a little W formation right there. You could exploit that and take a few ticks profit. Now it's coming back into the bid order flow right there. So this is the one thing I can promise you with the markets. Whenever you see an aggressive move down, even if the news is absolutely terrible, if it starts to find its feet back, it's going to try and recover from that point. Okay? It's going to do it because the book needs to level itself out. Now, if I just go over and pull this over to you, look. Can you see these red lines? These are imbalances. And we look left and we know, look, the book doesn't like to be empty. It needs to transact there. So then when it goes back to that point, it's either going to continue to go through it because these guys were buying and the idea is to sell above that point, or it's going to go into that point and repeat the same thing and then drop down again. So you can see, look, you've got imbalances down here, imbalance down there. But the book is relatively okay because you haven't got any missed spaces. But then when you look over here, there's zeros right there. So the market needs to really go back into that. And that's what I mean about when you understand the bid order, bid offer flow. Even if the news is terrible, you'll see price drop down aggressively. Then it will slowly climb back up and then just pick up from there. So when you identify that, those are opportunities that you can exploit. Okay. Any questions on that? Why are we talking about thongs? That is crazy. Tino, you don't like the futures market trading options? Tino trades. No, I don't mind trading futures. I mean, right now, I've got a little trade on right now with the NASDAQ. I'm currently in longs on NASDAQ. It's about $900 profit, but I don't trust it. And it's probably going to come back down, but I'm waiting to see if it can recover this red vector candle region right here. So I'm just waiting to see if I can actually, my entry was all the way down here. Yeah, entry was averaged around, 21,332. And I'm waiting to see if it can continue higher from that point. If not, then, you know, we scratch on the trade, we break even. But I just want to wait and see if I can actually get this pump back into the imbalances on what I just said to you right here. Literally just trading back into that imbalance. And if we watch it, then we know that the market has got yesterday's close right there. So we're going to wait and see if they can actually do it. But NASDAQ is so treacherous, okay, that it can easily just come all the way back down again. And that's the risk I'm willing to take. I'm willing to break even on the trade. And I could be risking $900 as such, but that's the name of the game. Like, I'm not going to be bitching about, oh, wow, we've just lost an opportunity. For me, I'm trading my system. I'm trading the idea that the book is going to level itself out, and it's very close to leveling that range. So I've got to wait and see if it can actually succeed that and break through it. So here we go. Are we seeing? We've got some offers coming into play right now. The candlestick seems like it's got a little bit of an imbalance. It's bouncing up and down. They're not really bidding too much, but this could be a little bid before it actually rolls to the upside to continue higher. So this is what I look for when I'm trading, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm just trying to see if it can actually make the move that I want it to do. But if it starts to stall, I mean, I've got a value area high up here, which naturally that's when you're going to start getting premium prices in. But if it comes all the way back down, then that's the name of the game, man. Like I can't control the market in principle, but Tino, what if the Chinese president puts a strap on and, oh my days, man, what am I reading? Jesus Christ, forgive me. Any other questions? Come on, give me a question. Tino, in black shirt means... Oh, never mind. Oh, Tina, we're going back to 100K in the next few days. Look, as long as Bitcoin stays below the 5 and 13 EMA, then your idea is Bitcoin's going lower. Like it's over on the 5 and 13 EMA, that is. Okay, so if we just go over to the daily time frame, unless Bitcoin gets back up above the 5 and 13 EMA, it looks like your rally has been compromised. That's the truth, you know? It looks like it's been compromised. So now you've got to wait until it stabilizes to start climbing back up again. That's what you're waiting for. How Bitcoin dominance can go up if Bitcoin price is down? It's because they're shorting Bitcoin futures and they're effectively buying it on spot. That's what I think they're doing there. And there's more weight on futures than there is spot. You've got more participants shorting it in the futures markets than you do actually having people buying it on spot. Now, think about it. Look at the volumes of futures markets. They completely wipe the floor on spot market volume. So naturally, that's going to be a case. And then in the end, Bitcoin, if it's going to be keeping on its movement to the upside, then naturally those guys are going to be able to absorb that drawdown, and then it continues to go up. Tino, can you make a PDF on details? Here we go. Hold on. We got some movement. Tino, can you make a PDF on bid and order flow? I've done PDFs on the website, on the Traders Reality website. There is this PDF right here, which I do strongly recommend that you actually check it out because it explains to you how I trade the hybrid system. And there's an example on there when I'm trading Bitcoin and Ethereum. So you can read that, download it. It's free of charge. And then, of course, you can download the hybrid system. And in the Platinum membership, you get access to the PDFs. So the PDF library itself is over here. Let me just quickly show you guys for anybody that is new. Here we go. So you go to the PDF library and there is an influx of PDFs on there that I've created on certain strategies regarding the hybrid system. So as I said earlier on, V-shaped reversals. If you're trying to understand how I'm able to scale into positions, there's a PDF on there. And then you've got red vector strategy, the block trade principle, and then the Brinks strategy there. And then you've got breaking down the macros. So that is a PDF exclusively. Of course, it's not appearing, but it's a PDF exclusively dedicated to the macros to help you understand the data and how I'm able to put together the idea of why when the yen's going up, when the euro's going up, why will the bonds go down? Why will the yields go up? Why does the stock market go down when the yields go up? And it helps you understand all of those fun and games. Okay. Tino, why does Bitcoin always go down over the weekend? It's not primarily always going down over the weekend because we've had some wonderful weekends where Bitcoin has gone up. Okay, so if we go and look at Sunday over here, you can see that on the Saturday, Bitcoin made a nice little pump to the upside, and then it obviously comes back down again. But it's because light volume, you know, and it's just pure volatility, very little liquidity, unless something really big is happening where the volume's going to come in. Yeah, it is a clown show, man. This is an absolute clown show. When did you start streaming? 2 o'clock. Yeah. The markets don't make sense. Tino, as a beginner trader, leverage seems to be my enemy. Is spot the way to go? And are you still a Padawan and not a jet? Listen, when it comes to leverage, ladies and gentlemen, your goal in principle is to be able to execute as many trades as possible. That's what you've got to do. And the more leverage you use, the less opportunities you can trade. Okay? Think about it like this. Let's go to poker. All right? You've got 10,000 chips. Your first hand. Right? Whatever your hand is, you're going to shove it all in. No, you're not. It doesn't make sense for you to shove it all in and risk your whole stack. All right? You've got to think about fold equity. You've got to think about position. You've got to think about the cards, the board texture, everything that comes with poker. Okay? Shoving all in is what you're doing with leverage. However, if I have got 10,000 chips and I then get a pair of aces and I'm first to act, and the blinds are $10, $20, I'm going to raise it 3 times. Probe, test, all right? Take a light trade. And the more I can play pots, the more I improve the chances of being able to win. The less leverage you use, the greater chance you have to sit through a drawdown to effectively allow the asset to go in your favor within reason. The mentality is exactly the same. Bankroll. There you go. Bankroll management, risk to ruin. A risk to ruin rate. If you've got a risk to ruin of anything below or at between 10 and 12%, you're wonderful. That is wonderful. Because it means that over a sum of trades, the risk of you ruining your account is only around 10 to 15%. That's brilliant. Okay. Now, when you use leverage, your risk to ruin ratio shoots up. Okay. Before you even take the trade. You know, it's when you're using leverage, you are putting your chances of ruining your account easily by 50% plus. So try and avoid using leverage. Try and avoid it. I do shovel in, still feels like I'm halfway through. What a guy. Anything else other than that? I scalp Bitcoin and I want to increase profit. What's the best move? Increase capital in Bitcoin or use some capital to scalp more volatile altcoins? Okay, so when you're scalping Bitcoin, ladies and gentlemen, the problem that you might have is, of course, the fees. That's the big problem. Fees, which means that you have to give yourself a little bit of freedom with Bitcoin and its volatility, which means that you're looking for ideally anything between $1,000 and $1,500 moves in Bitcoin, because that's going to cover your fees. Now, the only way that you can achieve that, ladies and gentlemen, is if you get yourself a situation where you see red vector candles like this. If you were to capture the absolute low from here on the principle of sweep, whoa, markets are open now. Here we go. So they're going to be reacting. Nvidia's moving up a little bit. Nvidia's just being a complete, absolute pain in the ass. Let me just have a look at the NASDAQ for a second. It's not really doing too much, to be fair. It's just bouncing up and down. Let's just have a look at what NASDAQ's doing. Here we go. So there you go. It just tapped that imbalance right there. So looks like it's doing okay. But it's moving very, very fast, ladies and gentlemen. It could easily come down. But the market right now is absorbing the news announcements from China. So if they haven't already done so, then that'll be a joke. But here we go. It could be coming back down to the VWAP. But yeah, looks like it's going to be doing that. But just going to wait and see if it can actually stabilize. Okay. But then other than that, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like the day's going to be absolutely madness. What you've got to do is just be careful. Okay. And make sure you hit the like button and subscribe on the way out, guys. And I'll be tuning into you all on Monday. Platinum members, I've got some flavor coming over to you to see if we can make some madness of this story. All right. Take care of yourselves, gang. Mad love. Peace.